had to go through in my life, I certainly see, like, I kind of watch this. It was like she's just presented. Like, you may as well just put her in a glass case at this point, because that's what you're trying to do. So, yeah, and speaking of being on display, Michael Cohen provided some very interesting documents to the committee as a display. We're going to go through a little bit of them now. I mean, we touched on them briefly before, but it was one of them was Exhibit 1A was Donald Trump's Statement of Financial Condition. It was put together by the Washington Post here, and they kind of talked about it was all about kind of a 3 years of Trump financial statements from 2011, 2012, and 2013 demonstrate the ways that Trump has strategically inflated or deflated his personal assets to game the system. There was a statements of financial condition were given to Deutsche Bank when Trump was asking to buy a loan for the Buffalo Bills, Cohen said, and to Forbes when Trump was trying to improve his ranking on the list of wealthiest Americans. So he was kind of utilizing it when he wanted to appear richer and when he wanted to appear poorer. 3 exhibits showed that Trump had on hand between $170 million and $346 million in cash and marketable securities, and the Washington Post reported in the 2013 statement shows Trump dramatically increased his own net worth estimate from $4.6 to $8.6 billion by claiming his own personal brand was worth $4 billion and had it as an asset. So he does pull around with that kind of like tricky stuff, and of course he tells Forbes, "Hey, my network's worth $8.6 billion," and then his name shoots up kind of the ranking of the charts. And there are definitely ways that this could appear a little bit shady, but this probably to me, I don't know about you, but this to me kind of is the most pungent, the most ripe for targeting area of both Southern District New York and Mueller to go after, where Trump has kind of screwed around with his money and made it seem like he is better off than he is in order to get loans for continuing to build his banks from Deutsche Bank and other kind of more international sources.
Yeah, it's this might be more in the realm of the SDNY, and this is their bread and butter. I mean, they have jurisdiction over the financial capital of the world, which is New York, and so they know all about bank fraud and insurance fraud, tax fraud, and I'm sure that they're all over this. If there's any wrongdoing in the Trump organization, they're going to find it.
Yeah, that's definitely quite true. And you mentioned a lot of kind of like Deutsche Bank and the loan pattern, the loans that were made for Trump. Like, what were those loans about for those who have not been really following the situation?
Well, after Trump had all kinds of financial problems with his casinos, went bankrupt. He had made loans through U.S. banks, and he couldn't repay them, and he just stiffed the banks. So he couldn't get financing anymore from any U.S. banks. So he started looking abroad, and apparently, for some reason, Deutsche Bank started cooperating with him and giving him loans. And it's also well known that Deutsche Bank has actually been fined substantially for laundering Russian money through the bank. And so you kind of put 2 and 2 together, and you get the feeling that maybe Russian money is coming through as loans to Trump through Deutsche Bank. So that's where that is. I haven't heard any really solid news about that, but you have to believe that the Mueller investigation is looking at that very carefully.
Yeah, that is kind of the more shadier example of this, and possibly like the plan, just the vast amount of ways with Trump and his well-known team of accountants have been able to move the money from place to place to place, and that is something that is, in my opinion, definitely worth looking into, and a lot more maybe than this collusion stuff, and possibly all that could tie into the Trump Tower Moscow business negotiations that were going on at the time. I don't know. We can speculate for definitely a long time on this. Yeah, so Exhibit 3B was when Trump kind of asked Cohen to arrange a straw bidder to purchase a portrait of him for auction at an Art Hamptons event, which was just an auction in the Hamptons. So what Trump did is he wanted his portrait to be purchased for the highest price of the day, kind of like suit his ego kind of thing, Cohen said. So he arranged for a fake bidder, Stuart Rahr, to buy the portrait for $60,000 and later, per Trump's authorization, repaid Rahr's funds using the Trump Foundation charity money. So, of course, Trump kept the painting for himself, and apparently he's done this more than once, as David Fahrenthold reported on a similar portrait purchase back in 2016. Actually won the Pulitzer Prize for that. So I think this kind of, you can put this under the category of Cohen revelations that are unsurprising to anyone who's really followed Trump's character. I don't know if you would agree on this.
Well, yeah, but it's still quite. I know. To me, it's kind of shocking and humorous at the same time. I mean, like Cohen was saying, how he considered his entire campaign to be a big marketing event. And that's what this auction was about, too. It was just to inflate the profile of his name, that the most expensive portrait sold at the auction would be of him,
Yeah. It's like, imagine being that egotistical.
Exactly. Yeah. So when Cohen said today that the whole campaign was a big marketing game, you really believed him because of these other kinds of things that Trump has done to just, inflate his wealth, inflate his name recognition, and just play his entire business life as a marketing game, getting his names on buildings, and that's about it,
Yeah, and that, it was really all about boosting the brand and saying that, okay, when time comes to share your net worth, my brand's worth like $4 billion or whatever he said. So that was a big part of it. Another interesting part of it was they provided as a supplementary part or notice of that was a kind of magazine cutout where Trump had written Michael C. next to a little clipping where they talked about the Stuart Rahr buying it for $60,000. So he wrote, Michael C. will handle this. And that's all very interesting. So, and then he tweeted about it too, saying, just found out that a charity auction of celebrity portraits in East Hampton, my portrait by artist William Quigley topped list at $60K. Well, he obviously organized that, and I think it was Barbara Underwood who ordered the Trump Foundation to shut down because of like a shocking amount of illegal activity or something.
Yeah, the New York State attorney.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that seems to be kind of par for the course of what they were doing, if that's what she called it there. This is what Cohen claims is evidence of the $130,000 payment he made Exhibit 4. Exhibit 5B, 5A was the $35,000 check, or he provided two of those. The next exhibit was the actually the letter he sent to Fordham University to demand, in a very threatening tone, that he wouldn't release college records. And by the way, it would be interesting to see what those college grades were. Let's see. Finally, Cohen said the president personally tried to attack him and intimidate him, in all caps. So, yeah, that was all very interesting stuff. Some of the more dramatic lines was when he said, I read on Twitter that he was like saying that he had to walk separately with his wife and his kids. When he wanted to go to the same restaurant, he'd walk with his kids and his wife would go alone. That's going to like ward off attacks from Trump, which, I mean, if it's true and if he had reason to fear that, like, just obviously incredibly awful stuff. Yeah, so that seems to be about pretty much everything that went on today. And what's next, Glenn? Where does Robert Mueller go from here?
Well, I think he's going to finish up from here.
Yeah.
I think I kind of believe the reporting that he's almost finished now. I mean, we've been hearing
Yeah.
for months and months and months that he's almost finished, but now I really do think he is.
Mm-hmm.
And what will just be interesting is to find out how any loose ends are who's going to pick up the loose ends of the Mueller investigation? Is he going to farm them out to the SDNY or other districts? I mean, there's still the matter of this mystery case with this foreign company that's defying a subpoena. There's this Stone aide named Andrew Miller who's defying a subpoena of his testimony. And these are all things that are still ongoing. So what is Mueller going to do with these things? Is he going to pass them off, or is he just going to drop them? So that'll be interesting. And then, of course, there's a lot of speculation about what kind of report he's going to produce. Is it going to be a giant tome like Ken Starr developed, or is it going to be more of a summary of the case, more of a legal brief of who was charged and who wasn't charged and why? And then there's going to be the question of what William Barr does with the report.
Yeah.
Whether he gives it to Congress. I mean, even that is up in the air. I'm assuming he would. Congress is going to try to push for at least a somewhat redacted public version, and it remains to be seen whether William Barr will allow that either. So there's a lot of questions that are still up in the air about what's going to happen in the near future.
All right, we will be focusing very heavily on all those. Glenn, thank you so much for coming on and helping us recap this big day.
Sure thing, Spencer.
All right, enjoy the rest of your night.
You too.
And that's it. We will be back tomorrow morning with a wake up, and yeah, that's about it. All right, we'll see you then. Thanks so much for listening.